ended up tracing my father's footsteps during the war, and I was able to do so not only to the week and sometimes the day, but even the hour at some times. And I was very surprised what happened on November 11, 1918, which, as we know now, is Veterans Day, which was Armistice Day during World War I, where everybody laid down their weapons. And I found out it's very surprising that in just the morning hours until 11 a.m. on November 11, 1918, more casualties fell during that time than on D-Day in 1944. So that, I think, is indicative of the carnage in the trenches during World War I. I loved my grandfather very much. I was 16 years old when he died. He, of course, he never talked about this with me. It's something that I had to find out about after. My deepest desire would be to spend one more day with him. What I would ask him. My grandfather was a Christian man, and I believe that his foundation in his Christian faith helped him not only when he was over in France and dealing with the war, but also when he came home and having to deal with what he had done and what other people had done to him. And this was something else that fascinated me in my research, was how you take somebody who you teach them not to kill someone, and then at a young impressionable age you put them down with minimal training and you expect them to kill others and then come home and, if he survives and be okay. And that fascinated me, and I found out last December a former military chaplain contacted me. I don't know how he found out about me, but contacted me, and we had been corresponding, and I found out that they've just kind of named this in the last couple of years, and the term that they use for it is moral injury. And moral injury or soul injury talks about when you're brought up a certain way and you're expected to do things that normally you would think are unconscionable, and yet you have to recover from that and resume a normal life. And a lot of it has to do with the concept of forgiveness, of forgiving yourself for what you did and forgiving the other guy for what he did to you. I hope that my book serves as a gateway book to other World War I books, that something in there piques your interest and you're excited to learn more about what happened during World War I. The other thing I want to point out is that there is no National World War I memorial in this country, and I believe one belongs on the mall. There was talk in December, I still can't find out exactly what's going on, about how they were going to rededicate the Pershing Park in Washington, D.C., which is like at a busy intersection. I don't know how that in the world that would be appropriate. And then they were talking about rededicating something at the big World War I museum in Kansas City, Missouri. But I believe that they deserve their own memorial on the mall, along with the other major war memorials. And if you look at it, has anyone here heard the name Frank Buckles? Frank Buckles was the last living doughboy in the United States, and it was his desire to get a World War I memorial built on the mall. And if you look at it, we kind of built them backwards. We built Vietnam first, and then we built Korea, and then we built World War II. And we probably should have started out building World War I, so there would be doughboys that could go on honor flights and go out and be honored and remembered. So what I'd like to do now is see if anybody has any questions, and then I would like to close by just reading a little bit more of the book. So does anybody have any questions about the U.S. Midway experience or anything that they want to share? Yes?
So a question, you mentioned over 4 million Americans participate in one fashion or another. During your research, have you come across a statistic said how that branches out into a number of family members or relatives. For example, if somebody was service and they had 6 siblings and 2 parents and 18 cousins. I'm just curious how many Americans actually had somebody participate that they knew were related to them.
I don't know any exact number to answer that, but I can tell you that the war probably touched every single family. And in my example, there were 4 boys in this family, and 3 of them were drafted, including my grandfather. And the 4th youngest son, of course, they expanded the draft as the months went on during the war, and he turned 18, and it was his turn to go, and I talk about this in the book, but he ended up getting a deferment, and it was because his parents went in and demanded that they weren't going to take their 4th son from them and have him go fight in France too. And he bitterly resented that for many years until he became a certain age and he realized that my parents were indeed trying to look out for me. And but it was a very sore thing with him. The other thing I can tell you about family members is that, as in the Civil War, sometimes you had brothers that were fighting on opposite sides. It was that close and that interwoven into a family. In World War I, it was like that in the respect that the country was a country of a lot of immigrants. And this, again, was something that happened to my family, where you had a case where family members over here were not directly fighting, but they were also family members on the German side who were fighting on the opposite side. So there was some of that going